Hi guys, Mariah from the Entourage team here, and welcome to this episode of the Make It Happen show. Sales is the lifeblood of every business, because if you're not making sales, then you're not making money and you're not growing. No matter what you're in the business of selling, every business owner needs to develop and refine their selling skills, because you need to be able to sell your vision, your idea, and of course, your product or service. To help you make it happen, we've called upon Peter Lakovich, Australia's leading sales trainer, to share 22 strategies to help you start generating more sales in our newest short course. Peter has over 25 years of experience helping small business owners create impactful sales strategies. He's also worked with the likes of Mazda, ING, Channel 9 and Westpac. In fact, his sales techniques have generated over $2 billion for Australian businesses. But as one of our loyal podcast listeners, you can access the whole course for just $19. If you're ready to grow, head to www.the-entourage.com/increase-sales to get lifetime access to this short course today. Now, I'll hand you over to Tim and our guest. It's time for the Make It Happen show.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Make It Happen show. I'm Tim Morris, the CEO at the Entourage. Today I'm joined by Irene Falcone. This was a really fun conversation. Irene founded Nourished Life and sold it for $20 million. And she's now launched her second business, Sans Drinks, which is a retailer and soon to be bricks and mortar retailer of non-alcoholic drinks. This is a really great journey. She really fights for a cause. That's what she's done with both businesses, Nourished Life and Sans Drinks. And you can really see how that lights her up. And I think it's really the essence of why these businesses have been so successful. So a lot of great stuff in here for anyone in e-commerce, a lot of great stuff for anyone who's building a brand. And of course, we learn about the journey into bricks and mortar stores. Great conversation, as always. Let's get into it. Irene Falcone, how are you doing? Welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's awesome to have you here. So you've had a great journey. You've built a business from nothing to an exit of $20 million, but you've also launched your second business just recently. It's going great guns. How have you made that happen?
Thank you. I think that, I'd love to say luck. I think I made it happen by passion. And I think the second business was a lot easier. The first business, I'd made a lot of mistakes, and by the time it came to launch the second one, I knew what not to do, and I knew the shortcuts. I knew the blueprint, and obviously I had a lot more money to invest. The first time I had like $100. This time I had 20 million, so it was a lot easier.
I think it's good that it goes that way, right? Because if you had all the money in the first business and you make these mistakes, and the ramifications would be bigger. So
true. The first business I might have lost a few hundred here or there. Exactly. Better than losing like millions.
Yeah. So Nourished Life was your first business. You started with like $100. How did you get it off the ground?
When I started, the US dollar was $1.05 to our dollar. So I basically bought 100 lip balms in the US with 100 Australian dollars, and it was enough to even cover the shipping cost to send it here. And I sold those for about $8 a piece. So I made $7 profit. Times 100 is $700 profit. And then I was on one flavour. I bought more flavours, and I just really started with a simple lip balm. But this is the thing. I started at a time when people did not know that the lip balms that they were using on their lips were made from the petrol, like the leftover from making, refining petrol, as basically petrochemicals on their lips. And I was able to tell a few people that on social media, and it spread like wildfire. And then, of course, would you put petrochemicals on your lips, or would you put this beautiful natural lip balm instead? So it was a bit of a no-brainer then, and it just grew from there.
Yeah. So why did you go looking for that lip balm in the first place?
Because I was actually working, I was the marketing manager for Universal Pictures, big corporate organisation, and we were allowed to do one day a month, have a day off to donate to work for charity. And I had volunteered that day with a company called the Australian Toxics, or the National Toxics Network, and they blew me away. They were campaigning to get BPA and phthalates out of baby bottles, and they won. And that blew my mind. And I've always been really passionate about the environment, and it was through them and through that volunteer work that I realised all this stuff about the sort of the chemicals that we were putting in on our body.
Well, and I love that you've seen this. It's like, here's something that I believe in, and then you really quickly turn it into a viable business. Although 700 $100 profit is great to start, right? And then you go and launch new products. I just love that intersection. And that seems to be your intersection, like something that you care about and you turn it into a successful business. Is that the through line for everything that you do?
I just don't think I could do a business that wasn't that way.
Yeah.
When you mix passion with something that you feel so strongly about and you know you're doing good. And the more money you make out of that business, the more good you can make. And, you know, if you look back now, even the companies that were selling the mineral oil lip balms, even they're doing natural versions now.
Yeah.
So, you know.
You've converted them.
Right. I've even converted. You know, you can't even hardly go into a chemist now and find body products with parabens in them. They're all taken out.
Yeah.
And so think about all the good, all that sort of effort did, not just from me, but everyone else that sort of followed and also went into that in the natural beauty industry. That's really exciting.
Well, you've got so many elements that are exciting. You're making a positive change. You're building a great business. You're getting like business is a great scoreboard, right? If the business is growing, you're making profit, means you're doing what you set out to do well. And so, I can see why that would really light you up, as it clearly does. Look at how excited you are.
There's this huge flow-on effect when you do things with by passion and that are a good thing.
Yeah. And so the numbers might be a little bit too big actually, but by the time you sold Nourished Life, roughly how many suppliers were on there? How many customers were you servicing? What was the scale?
Oh, thousands. I mean, I sold it for 1 times revenue, so I was turning over 20 million at the time. So to turn over 20 million, you need a lot of suppliers.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, I didn't have very many staff. I think I had the pick pack staff, which were all mums, all local mums that worked school hours. But we were kept it lean. Nice and tight business and kept it really lean as well. Fantastic.
And so you've now taken a whole bunch of the things that you learned there with Nourished Life and applied it to your new business, Sans Drinks. Talk us through that.
Well, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because you think, well, what was Nourished Life? Nourished Life was a store that sold products that didn't have toxins in it. So I'm doing exactly the same thing. It's all I know.
Yeah.
I'm now selling beer, wine and spirits without poison.
Yep.
I drank too much. I sold my company and I drank too much. There's no doubt about it. I had to stop drinking.
Yeah.
And so many mums, I think, well, I know now because they're my customers, are drinking too much every day, and we're not getting any younger. And I walked into a bottle shop and I said, have you got any alcohol-free wine? And they looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
But I got the same look when I walked into a chemist 10 years ago asking for natural deodorant. And it was at that point I realised, oh, yeah, I got it again. I got it again. And so I just went home. I had $30,000 worth in my cellar of fancy Grange and the Hill of Grace and all the stuff I was collecting and drinking too much of. I sold it off to auction.
Yep.
Made $30,000 out of that.
I thought you were going to say I gave it away. I'm like,
no. I used that to start.
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy? I started Sans Drinks again from my garage.
Great.
With that money. Why did I do that? But it's really interesting because I realised through the whole process that I'm addicted to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I could sell Sans Drinks to Dan Murphy's tomorrow for 20 million or 50 million or whatever. I'm still just going to start another business out of the garage again.
Yeah.
And so I think that's it's unexplainable.
If you were just in it for the profit, you would do that, right? But you're not. You're in it to make a difference and make an impact. And I suppose because you're only, several months in with Sans Drinks, right? There's a long way to go.
Yeah.
There's a lot of impact to make. And so that's what you're going to do. It's an interesting area. I've certainly thought to myself, I drink too much. I think we will probably all drink too much. And so I do Feb Fast and Dry July each year. A couple of years ago when I started doing it, there was just no options. There was no, the only things you could get was you get some wines, and tended to be Nordic wines that have no alcohol in it, and the alcohol-free beer was water.
And the sparkling grape juice from the supermarket.
Yeah,
I know.
It was shocking. But then in the last couple of years, there's been a huge explosion. And so why is that? Why are people starting to crave non-alcoholic drinks?
It's really interesting. I think there's 2 segments of this market. The first segment are people who want to stop drinking as much. And so they're the people who have sort of gone into the supermarket and had the grape juice, or gone into a bottle shop and drunk something that wasn't very good, and sort of go, well, there's nothing else out there, I'll just go back to the alcohol. There's that segment. And but then there's a whole, but they know about it. So the dry July people. But then there's a whole other segment of people who actually drink alcohol all the time and love it and had no idea that there was an alternative. And that's really my market. It's the, oh my gosh, you're telling me that I can drink a red Shiraz in front of the fire and watch maths or whatever I want to do, married or whatever, the Bachelorette or whatever, and have my chocolate and not feel crap the next day.
Yeah.
And when I tell them, yes, you can, and I do free tastings in store so I can prove what I'm saying, that it's fabulous, and people taste it.
Yeah.
I've changed their lives. I mean, their routine, their social aspect, their ritual that they do at night, nothing else changes. It's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, because there's so much just revolves around the having a glass of wine or having a glass of beer. It's not the actual alcohol part. Like I find when I do get into dry July, the placebo effect of having a non-alcoholic, it's you just think that you're having a drink. It's the same. It's
actually a scientific fact. So there is peer-reviewed research out there to say that your endorphins and in your brain, when you drink non-alcoholic beer, you still get the same feeling, and your brain waves react the same way as if you were drinking the alcoholic beer. So it's actually proven.
There you go. I knew it.
You're right.
And so it seems like, I love the principle of the slow hunch, right? Like all great ideas come from a bit of a slow hunch. Like you feel it, you think there's something here, and then it's like, aha, the light bulb moment. So that sounds like you. Like you probably were looking into non-alcoholic drinks, and then you're like, aha, it's the same as before. Where do you go from there? Like how did you say, I'm gonna take this slow hunch, this idea I now have, into a fully fledged business? It's
really interesting, and I flip-flopped around actually a lot, because what I wanted to do was not do another store, because retail's hard. You know, retail's hard and there's no margin in it. And I learned, one of the things I did learn from Nourished Life is own your brand. And so I wanted to make my own non-alcoholic gin. I wanted to be an Irene version of Seedlip, because I thought Seedlip was just fantastic at the time. It was one of the first brands that opened up the market.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'll just make a Seedlip. Easy. And then I'll sell that, and then I'll be famous for making a non-alc gin, and that's really why I ended up. I still work for Nourished Life, but that's why I left the day-to-day 9 to 5 of the Nourished Life job. And I said to them, I want to make my own non-alc gin. And then so I went down the road, you know, of making it, and I thought, oh shit, who am I going to sell it to? Who's going to buy it? And I thought, who's going to buy this? And I thought, I got nowhere to sell it to. I can't sell it to the supermarkets, because the supermarkets, they sell cordial. It's not really the place people were going to buy a $50 bottle of gin. And, all right, I'm going to sell it to the liquor stores. And I thought, well, the liquor store is not really the right place to sell the opposite of liquor, right? So I thought, okay, well, that's going to be really tough to sell it to those guys. And at the end of the day, I didn't want to deal with buyers like I used to be at Nourished Life. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? And then I thought, okay, I'm going to have to set up my own online store,
like
bottle shop.
Here
I am, exactly. So I created Sans Drinks purely as a mechanism to sell my own gin.
Yeah. Did you make your own gin?
No, I didn't, because and then I realized I don't need to make a gin. I'm having such a great time selling everyone else's that I haven't got time to make my own, and so I have no plans, by the way, to make my own gin. That was just the journey that got me to, you know, you ask about how do you get to where I am. That's how I got to where I am.
I'll be like, I'm not going down this path. I'm going down this path.
I was born for online retail. Yeah. That is in my every cell of my body.
I absolutely know where you're coming from there. So you so once you decided to go back into retail store, right? Then it's like, okay, I know exactly how to do this, or how did it differ from the first time around?
One thing I regret that I didn't do at Nourished Life. You know, there's always something in life you regret. It's the one that got away, right? Yeah. For me, the boyfriend that got away for me was not doing a bricks and mortar store.
Okay.
And so now I'm opening up Australia's first non-alcoholic bottle shop.
Cool.
I just actually am getting my keys this afternoon, and it's in Freshwater, and it's a real bricks and mortar store. It's directly across the road from Vintage Cellars. And I truly believe that is the missing link to this business because the credibility, because anyone can open up an online store and sell stuff. You know, we all know anyone can do that. But I think there's a credibility aspect of having a real bricks and mortar store. It says you're serious, and also people want to come in and try it as well.
Because there's a tasting element.
There's a tasting element. So I'm super excited that I'm being able to realise my dream the second time round.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a smart move as well because people will not cross shop, but they'll go to like. I think for a lot of people it will just be a substitute. I mean, that just comes from my opinion. It's like people will try to drink a little bit less by substituting in non-alcoholic drinks. So they might go over to Vintage Cellars, buy a couple of things, come over to you, get the rest. Great.
Absolutely. Or, you know, the pregnant wife might come into my store and the husband might go buy his gin, you know, at Vintage Cellars. Or, you know, you might come in if you're doing Dry July or a Feb Fast or October or one of those.
There's a lot of months now.
Yeah, every month. I think we've hopefully got one for every month now. But you might think, okay, I'm going to take this really seriously. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to actually explore the hundreds and hundreds of beautiful non-alc craft beers from around the world, right?
Yeah.
And so for that, you know, you can come to someone like me and you can actually try all this beer that you would have never tried before if you weren't traveling. And I think that's quite an interesting way to go alc-free as well. There's something nice about exploring that and also about not having to do one or the other. Yeah. So you can have a break.
We've actually had an old member of ours. He's one of the guys at Heaps Normal. I think it's just fantastic that they've been able to carve that out as their niche in amongst a whole growing industry. The whole boutique brewing industry, I think, is fantastic.
I mean, they're the perfect example of, you know, the non-alcoholic booze industry is the fastest growing drinks category now in the world and in Australia. And Heaps Normal, I mean, I sell 2 pallets of Heaps Normal every week.
Yeah.
I'm actually, thank goodness that their warehouse is near mine because I literally cannot keep that in stock. But I also read that Heaps Normal beer is outselling regular beer in some bottle shops.
Yeah, I read that as well.
That's amazing.
It's phenomenal. Yeah, it's good. And so, I think on a whole, as an industry, the whole hospitality industry, boutique brewing, I think it's brilliant that it's growing, brilliant there's a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs. And then there's, again, this another, it used to be micro, but getting bigger opportunity for other entrepreneurs to carve out an area that also does good. I think it's fantastic. So who else are you seeing in the industry? Who else would you like to give a shout out in the non-alcoholic beverages industry?
Well, I think, you know, the brands. So you've got, we've got some really great new brand. There's a brand called New Blood, for example, and they are like winemakers, but they've only made these non-alcoholic wines, and they're probably some of the best non-alcoholic wines you'll ever have. They're incredible. So we have these new brands coming in to the market. We also have to really applaud your Lindemans, your New McGuigans, and your Jacobs Creek, and there's probably a few more that I can't think of off the top of my head. They're bringing out their wines and spitting the alcohol out. Isn't that great from a traditional wine house to do that? So
it goes through the normal kind of fermentation process and then they treat it to get rid of the alcohol?
Well, actually, that's how you do all non-alc wine anyway.
All of it,
yeah.
Hi guys, Mariah from the Entourage team here again. Just wanted to jump on and make sure you're going to get your hands on the 22 Sales Strategy short course with Peter Lakovich today. It's not every day that you get to access the high growth sales strategies that have generated over $2 billion for Australian businesses. I'd hate for you to miss out. Head to www.the-entourage.com/increase-sales to get lifetime access for just $19. Now let's get back into the show.
I'd love to touch on the branding element, right? Because you are so central to the branding of Sans Drinks. Like you're there front and center. It's like you and the brand and the cause are all one and the same. Can you talk to us about being like the face of and the champion of the brand?
It's a really interesting question because it will make it a lot harder when I go to sell it.
At least it's not named after you.
Yes, exactly. Although isn't that Dan Murphy's face in the Dan Murphy's logo? Anyway, no. The truth is I don't know how to do it any other way. I only know me, and so I think with brand it comes down to authenticity, and I think that because my core platform to communicate with people is social media and emails and face to face and all of that, and it has to be me. If it's not me, then how do you create a brand? I have a real issue with a brand that's disconnected to a founder, and I love, I love a good, strong founder behind a brand. I mean, we think of people like Tony Nash and Booktopia, right? And I know he's been one of my best mentors throughout this entire journey. He actually doesn't drink. Either. And he was really excited when I told him I'm going to do a new business. But he's a great example of he's behind the brand. He's up there getting the awards, and so, he's out there on social media, you can see him there. And I think there's something really nice about that, as opposed to brands where there's just a headless.
Yeah, soulless. Yeah. Well, they can get up to trouble that way as well. Not accountable to anyone, not accountable to a vision. Right, so that maybe it's all just for profit. But where it gets interesting is how do you scale that? Because I know that you love connecting with your audience. Yeah. You love talking to them on social media. You love being the first line of customer service and sales and defense. So how do you scale that in a clever way so that the business keeps on growing?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't really have huge plans to go beyond 20 to 30 million. And I feel comfortable and I know I can do that with the small team that I have.
Yeah.
And so I think that, okay, here's the answer to your question. I give you the answer to your question. Never, ever outsource your social media and your customer service.
Yeah.
And your pick-pack operation.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be, here's the people argue, not that might disagree with that, but I'll tell you, never outsource those.
Yeah.
Because they are the connection between you, the person who founded the business, and your customer.
Yeah.
It blows my mind when you see companies that outsource, let's outsource social media, but we'll do the accounting in-house, right?
Yeah. And when you say outsource, you mean get another company to do it for you, not build a team that does it with you and for you.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sorry. Your in-house, your team. Even if your team is remote, it doesn't matter. They have to be your team. They have to be part of your team. They have to be on your salary role. Yeah. So not a third-party fulfillment center to send your orders out.
Yeah.
Not a agency to do all your, your social, or outsource your social media. Not a call center to take your calls. So I think if you outsource everything else, like everything else you can outsource, your buying role, your accounting role, your legal stuff, or everything else can get outsourced.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to the direct line between your brand and your customer, you got to keep that as close to you as possible. Again, it's as close as it can, and that's what customer sees. The customer sees, and they're really close to where I'm at. So I love that. Building a close team, I think that's really important.
Yeah. So the core takeaway I take from that is like the roles that are customer facing and interact with the customer, keep them in house so that they're you, they behave like you, they represent your values, and then the other stuff you can look at outsourcing and getting experts even sometimes or partners to do that. That's a really good takeaway. I love how you say, happy to get to like 10, 20 million. It's nice and small, manageable business. I think that's the beauty of retail, right? You can get a retail business to $20 million without too many people. But then if it's a people-based business, $20 million will probably involve big teams, a lot of complexity. And so it's a different beast. So physical stores opening up soon. That's
yes.
very, very exciting.
Thank you.
I mean, you're already obviously selling online.
Yes.
What are the next big steps for Sans Drinks?
That's a good question. I haven't really thought past the store, but a store, 3 or 4 stores in Sydney, Melbourne, a couple in Brisbane, that sort of thing. I don't want to go into the space of cafe and bars.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are non-alcoholic bars popping up all the time, but I think there's a lot of people asking me, are you going to go into that area? But what's interesting is I feel very strongly about inclusiveness, and I think that I would love to encourage more bars and clubs to serve more non-alc or any non-alc on their menus. I definitely do not think that people should be going to a bar that only does non-alc. I think, like you said, the husband might want to have a drink and the wife might not want to have a drink. Yep. So I think anything that I can do in the hospitality industry to encourage them to stock more of the non-alc products, I think that would be the best thing we could do for the industry.
Yeah, it's great. I suppose, drinking has long been such a core part of the Australian identity, and so that you can see why it will take a long time to shift. But then again, the last couple of years, it's kind of been like these things happen there slowly, all of a sudden. And it seems like we're in this all of a sudden stage right now, which is great place to be for you. Yeah. we've got a couple more questions that we'll get onto to start wrapping things up. But before we get into that, I'd love to know what you think is different about going into the retail space. So obviously you know the e-com bit. Getting into retail, what are a couple of things you're like, wow, I didn't know this. I didn't know it worked like this.
I am so used to signing leases with warehouses, easy as, so I get the lease for my bricks and mortar store, and the agent says, okay, so who's your lawyer? I go, what? I was just going to read it and sign it. They said, no, you need a lawyer. What do you mean you need a lawyer? I have warehouses all the time. It's literally like back and forth with lawyers, you know, with retail, bricks and mortars, very serious.
Yeah.
Very serious with things. And then on top of that, I needed to get council approval.
Yeah.
So I had to get something called a CDC, and then I had to get council approval. Like, you can't just move in.
Yeah.
And so I actually thought the red tape around it that set me back. I mean, I should have been open a month and a half ago. I had no idea. Actually, all my shelving arrived and out the front, and I didn't have my key to get in. So, yeah, it's been challenging. But I haven't actually been in there yet and served anyone. So I can't even tell you beyond the red tape how it's going to go.
Exciting journey ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a couple more questions here. We've got 5 questions that we try and make it happen in a minute.
Oh, that's impossible for me. I'm sorry.
Don't worry, it's fine. It's a minute per answer. I think the original concept for this was that we'd do 5 questions in a minute.
Oh, that
Never
wouldn't
happened.
happen, no.
Never, ever happened. Mainly my fault. So we'll just run through these and take as long as you like.
Okay.
All right, first question is, what's the number one mistake you see a lot of e-commerce brands making?
Outsourcing their pick-pack operation.
Great, nailed it. Wow, you're moving through these fast. After all that. Number 2, what is the worst piece of e-commerce advice that you've heard given to a small business owner?
Outsource your customer service.
This is great. All right, let's go. What is your current favourite non-alcoholic beverage and why?
Oh, I'm obsessed with the New Blood Shiraz because I gave away, I didn't give it away. I auctioned off so much of my beautiful Barossa Shiraz.
Yeah.
It was my drink of choice, and I'm so glad that I can hold it in my hand and still have it and watch TV and eat chocolate. It's wonderful.
I love the branding that's coming through. New Blood is so good for this, and like keeps normal. It's so clever.
It's so good, isn't it?
Yeah, great. All right, question number 4. What's your top tip for business owners who want to help empower parents that are in their team?
Flexible working hours. If you give a parent, I did this for Nourished Life, and if you can give a parent the opportunity to go to your child's concert and assemblies and the Mother's Day events and the sporting events that happen not that often, you're talking about 3 or 4 days in a year.
Yeah.
You are going to get so much more out of that parent than you are if you make them work 9 to 5, because they are not going to go home and start thinking about, their job. And so that is absolutely give parents the flexibility to have work-life balance.
Great advice. And final question, if someone wants to ensure that their brand or product or service stays connected to their consumers, what's the one thing they need to do to make that happen?
It's about jumping on emails for an hour every day or every week. It's about jumping on social media and making sure you're responding to people. It doesn't have to be 24 hours, 7 days a week, but you need to be on there regularly, making sure you're connected.
All right, so the online store's up and running, retail store. When have you got an opening date?
Oh, I think I'll be open by next week.
Yeah.
So
by the time this episode airs, you'll be well open.
By the time this airs, absolutely, yeah. Freshwater at Lawrence Street, 28 Lawrence Street, Freshwater. I'll see you there for some free tastings.
Fantastic. Well, it's a good cause. It's a really interesting space. I've had a great conversation with you, Irene. Thanks for being on.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Make It Happen show. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. And it doesn't need to end there. We've actually gone and grabbed a whole bunch of extra resources for you. Behind the scenes footage, videos from this and all the other episodes, as well as show notes that you can grab for free. Just head along to www.the-entourage.com/podcast and you can grab all those extra resources. Thanks for tuning in, and I cannot wait to introduce you to our next guest on the next episode.